Straight Talk India's Afghan Jalebi Taliban outreach corners Pakistan on all fronts. Foremost, May 15 was an uneventful Thursday. Over at South Block, however, the phone rang. External Affairs Minister Drive S. Jaishankar picked it up. Who was on the other side of the call? Afghanistan's acting foreign minister, Amir Khan Muttaqi. This single phone call confirmed what many in Indian strategic and foreign policy circles have known for long, that India and the Taliban are in close and regular contact. So, what was on the agenda of the call? For starters, both EAM Jaishankar and the Taliban's Muttaqi chose to expose Pakistan for the shameless liar that it is. Jaishankar commended Muttaqi for firmly dismissing baseless reports aimed at damaging India-Afghanistan relations. This was in reference to Pakistani claims that India orchestrated a fake operation at Pahalgam with the help of the Taliban, and that the Indian Armed Forces IAF launched air strikes against Afghan territory during Operation Sindoor. Obviously, the Taliban has picked sides in the ongoing India-Pakistan flare-up. For decades, Pakistan has considered the Afghan Taliban as one of the many proxy groups it controls in the region. At the behest of the West, Pakistan trained ragtag mujahideen who went on to fight Russian forces during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The same mujahideen, with the open support of Pakistan, metamorphosed into what the world today knows as the Taliban. However, after the Taliban recaptured Kabul in 2021, it dumped Pakistan like a mismatched hinge date, polite at first, but ghosted the moment a better match India swiped right. What explains this turnaround? It seems the Taliban, regardless of its own notorious history, has come to a stark realization: Pakistan is a rogue nation, a sponsor of terrorism, and effectively, a failed state. The sheer irony is that even the Taliban finds Pakistan too precarious for a committed relationship, and that profoundly underscores the collapse of Islamabad's diplomatic influence in its immediate neighborhood. The Taliban-Pakistan bromance is truly over. What was once a patron-client relationship is now marked by deepening hostility. Pakistan's inhumane mass deportation of thousands of Afghan refugees, with threats of further expulsions looming, has deeply strained ties and drawn condemnation. Compounding this, persistent disagreements and skirmishes along the historically contested Durand Line continue to be a major flashpoint. Islamabad also accuses the Afghan Taliban of harboring and allowing the Tehreek-Taliban Pakistan (TTP) to operate from Afghan soil, a charge Kabul denies. These accusations have even led to direct military actions, such as Pakistani airstrikes in Afghan provinces like Paktika, which the Taliban claims resulted in civilian casualties. Nan Pakistan is sweating like never before. High-level engagements between India and the Taliban have simply blown the lid off Pakistan's belief that its western frontier was relatively stable and secure. India has begun masterfully boxing Pakistan into an increasingly untenable multi-front dilemma. The irony is that this is exactly what Pakistan and China have been trying to do with India for years now under the famed string of pearls policy. Firstly, Pakistan faces a confident and decisive India, which has shown it can strike the terror state at will, and with relative ease. Add to that, New Delhi is now engaging directly with Afghanistan's rulers. The result of this is that Pakistan has to now contend with an increasingly hostile Kabul. Effectively, Afghanistan is no longer a pliant western frontier for Pakistan. This systematically erodes Pakistan's long-held strategic depth doctrine, a cornerstone of its security policy against India. Thirdly, and perhaps most critically for Islamabad's stability, Pakistan is grappling with escalating unrest within its own borders in Balochistan, Sindh, and the resurgent threat from the TTP, which it ironically accuses Afghanistan of supporting. The obvious question Pakistan must answer is this: does the country have the strength to face hostile neighbors on the eastern and western fronts, while simultaneously fighting strong insurgencies in Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and soon, maybe even Sindh? India's Afghan outreach amplifies the pressure on these internal fault lines, not by direct interference, but by limiting Pakistan's external maneuverability and forcing it to divert resources to manage a western border it once considered secure. Of course, New Delhi is under no illusions about the Taliban's intrinsic nature, its regressive ideology, or its human rights record. India's engagement is not an endorsement but a calculated move rooted in stark geopolitical realities. In the larger strategic calculus of a volatile region, having an Afghanistan that is neutral, or at least not actively hostile and aligned with Pakistan, is a significant advantage for India. It effectively neutralizes a potential front and denies Islamabad the strategic depth it has long sought at India's expense. Prime Minister Modi's approach is a masterclass in pragmatic realpolitik. By engaging the Taliban, even with all the inherent complexities such a relationship entails, India not only secures its own vital interests in Afghanistan, including the continued flow of humanitarian aid, ensuring the safety of its projects, and seeking counter-terrorism assurances, but also strategically isolates Pakistan on the regional stage. And while Pakistan contends with emerging challenges both internally and externally, India's policy toward the Taliban is one of natural progression. Afghanistan, in the Indian scheme of things, is too critical a country to ignore. While the Taliban's radical and extremist view of the world is hardly appreciated by India, New Delhi is aware of the fact that China is eyeing Kabul like a hawk eyes its prey. Read more Straight Talk. By engaging with Taliban, India has cornered Pakistan in Afghanistan. China was among the first countries to send its ambassador to Kabul and in early 2024, received a Taliban representative as its ambassador in Beijing. For long, India has been Afghanistan's go-to partner for aid and developmental projects. New Delhi simply cannot afford to let years of precious investments go down the drain. However, since the Taliban took over, while Indian aid did not stop, China started making moves to fill the vacuum left by the US and Europe. It is not a coincidence, therefore, that a specific portion of the call between EAM Jaishankar and his Afghan counterpart was highlighted to the media. Indian officials have emphasized that New Delhi attached a lot of significance to last week's conversation, as it came in the backdrop of Modi's visit to China and Iran this week. Simultaneously, officials have said India is planning to provide humanitarian assistance for the thousands of Afghans expelled by Pakistan. This, in addition to doubling down on development projects, promises to help India earn some valuable goodwill in Afghanistan. Swipe left for next video. This is India's Afghan Jalebi moment, not sugary, but sticky, twisted, and impossible to walk away from. Yet, New Delhi is navigating it with eyes wide open and using every turn to tighten the noose around Pakistan's regional ambitions. Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the author. They do not necessarily reflect News 18's views. Latest blogs.